The majority of gaming laptops that I've had in the past have been fairly thick and have traded their portability and lightweightness for a bit of extra horsepower in games. This laptop though, from PCSpecialist, their Fusion laptop, is actually the opposite way around. It's trading a little bit of in-game performance for being a very, very thin and fairly lightweight gaming laptop as well. So is it worth it though? Let's take a look. Starting off with a bit of a tour of the laptop, this actually has a very clean aesthetic. There's no logos on the top of the clamshell, just a sort of silver brushed aluminium look to it, which is actually very nice, very subtle, means you're more likely to be able to use this as a workstation and take it into the boardroom, as they say, rather than being a very gamer aesthetic kind of focused laptop, which is definitely nice to see. When you open up the clamshell, you'll also notice that while the keyboard does have RGB backlighting, it's quite subtle and you can turn it off. So if you don't want a bright gamer aesthetic laptop in your office, but you still want to be able to, do some work, but then bring it home and game, this is actually quite a nice shout. Now, the other thing that you'll notice when you open up the clamshell is the fairly small screen to body ratio for the display, except for a very large chin bar. And on that large chin bar, you'll notice something else down there. Here's a quick test of that. So here's a quick test of the, hold on. There we go. Right, so it's down the bottom, and that's quite awful. It really looks up your nose, and where you saw it a second ago was where I would have the display normally, so I've now had to tilt the display much further back than I'm generally comfortable with, and while the display is good, it's still a little bit annoying that it's all the way down there. So as you saw, I really don't like the webcam placement. I know there are a number of laptops, especially higher end and bigger branded versions, that are doing this, but I really don't like it, so I'd like to see something a bit better in kind of future revisions of this, but otherwise it's still okay quality, and the microphone is also pretty decent. I would also mention the speakers are also pretty good as well. They're not, the best in the world. They're not gonna rock your house out with great quality audio at really high volume, but if you're watching movies and whatever with your partner or something, and you just want a nice laptop with some good speakers, this one will do. Yeah. Speaking of watching films, you'll actually be able to do that pretty well with this this display. It's a 1080p 60Hz display. I'm not sure if it is actually IPS or not, as I couldn't see that listed on their website, but from everything that I've seen with it, it certainly looks like it is. It does have great viewing angles, especially side to side, as you can see here, and also top and bottom as well, which again you can see here, but either way it is still actually a very impressive display. Now I would mention that color accuracy isn't that great. I used my Spider 5 to test this as usual, and it had only 86% coverage of sRGB, 60% of Adobe RGB, and 62.4% of the DCI-P3 spectrums, so it's certainly not going to be the best for color sensitive work, but to the eye it does actually look quite appealing. Of course, just below the display you have the keyboard and trackpad. The keyboard is actually a fairly nice design. It's not the best that I've tried, it's a little bit mushier than I would like, but of course that's coming from a mechanical gaming keyboard with Cherry Mix Brown switches, so of course it's not going to be the exact same experience. I think you'll have a pretty decent time with it though. There's really no layout sins here. The FM key is on the left hand side, but so is the Windows key, so I'm all happy with that, and it's a UK ISO layout for being sold in the UK, so again I'm pretty happy with the experience. The trackpad did actually have a very similar issue to a previous, I think the Recall 2 laptop that I had from PCSpecialist, where certain fingers will make it jump around a fair bit, but it was something that I couldn't reliably reproduce, so it's probably not too much of an issue. Just bear in mind that may be something that happens, but either way it's still quite nice. Still has all the gestures that you would expect, the two-finger scrolling and that sort of thing, and a few multi-touch gestures for things like the sort of alt-tabbing out of different applications, so that's always nice to see. And the final piece in the tour of the exterior is the I/O. There's actually I/O on all three sides, left, back and right. So starting off with the right hand side, you have an SD card reader and two USB 3 ports. On the back you have two mini display ports and an HDMI, as well as a USB Type-C and your DC in, and then on the left hand side you have a half-height gigabit Ethernet kind of port, as well as another USB port and headphone and microphone jacks. Now of course you're probably wondering what the spec of the laptop is. Now you can configure this on PCSpecialist's website, and I'll leave a link to this laptop down below if you do want to configure it, but let's just say that the spec that I have here is an Intel i7 8750H, which is a 6-core CPU, and actually boosts all the way to just shy of 4 GHz, which is quite impressive for a laptop CPU. You also have a GTX 1060 Max-Q. This is a effectively underclocked 1060, so comparing even a notebook 1060 to a Max-Q 1060, the Max-Q one is going to be slower, but not by that much. It's probably a little bit faster than a 1050 Ti, but again, also not by much, so there's a bit of a balance there. You also get 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM, in this case Corsair Vengeance modules, which is nice to see, and you can change them out or configure them in the, on PCSpecialist website. You also get an Intel 760p 512 gig SSD with this model, although bear in mind, again, that can be configured, and my model actually came with a 660p, which is a good bit slower and a cheaper drive overall, so make sure you check that out when you are, well, checking out if you're picking one of these up. So now you know the spec, let's take a look at how that translates into real-world in-game performance. So as always, starting off with 3D Mark Firestrike at 1080p, thanks to the display we have here, it's 8,906 points. You can check out 3D Mark's website to see how that compares to other laptops. In terms of more real-world gaming benchmarks, we have Dirt Rally on ultra settings here, again at 1080p. We're looking at 75 FPS average with 40 minimum, 101 maximum, so a pretty overall smooth experience. GTA 5 on very high settings is 110 FPS average with 40 and 172, so pretty decent minimums and maximums overall, although quite a wide range. Unity in Heaven is about 80 FPS average, and while the minimum FPS is 9 there, that's fairly standard for Unity in Heaven, so don't worry too much about that, this is still a good run. In terms of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, again at ultra settings, which is not what I personally recommend, but either way, at ultra settings you're looking at 56 FPS with minimums of 33 and maximums of 77, so definitely playable, but of course you're going to want to turn some settings down. And then Fortnite is a 73 FPS average experience with 55 minimum and 109 maximum, so overall a very smooth experience and generally pretty good to last you. So as you saw, this has pretty decent performance, especially considering its size. I would mention that there are a few kind of drawbacks to its size beyond just reduced in-game performance, especially in the kind of noise and temperature characteristics. So with this one, I was seeing a fairly loud sort of setup. I mean, I'll stick the cooler boost option on and you can hear the noise of the fans at full boost. Now of course this isn't in-game as you can see, but it's a good idea of how loud it gets when it's on. It is certainly loud, it's not any coil one, it's just the airflow moving through, but I would also mention that even with those fans running at pretty much full tilt, you're looking at about 90 degrees Celsius under gaming load with the CPU and the GPU both at that temperature, which is pretty hot. I would mention though that that is contained generally to the middle and right side of the laptop and not the left side where your hand will be while gaming, so that is a good design choice, but the fact that when you take a look inside, the heatsinks are absolutely tiny and you only have a couple of them for what are essentially a 6-core 4 GHz CPU and a downclocked 1060, it's kind of, it's certainly a downside to mention. While we're inside the laptop though, we should take a look at what you can upgrade and generally a few other bits. So first of all, as you can see, we have Corsair Vengeance DDR4 RAM in here that you can upgrade if you fancy. It's standard DDR4 SODIMM memory, so you can just swap it out if you like. You can also add in an extra M.2 SSD under the, what should be a 760p, but in my case is a 660p Intel SSD, so you can add some extra storage. And of course you can upgrade that one if you fancy too. And then down the bottom you can see the 62 watt-hour battery, which means that you're pretty much good for 4 to 5 hours of average web browsing use, and then as usual about an hour of gaming at reduced clock speed. So overall I would say this is a pretty good laptop. My usage experience was pretty positive, and while it is a little bit loud and certainly runs fairly hot, it still performs well in games and is a good mobile workstation as well. There are a few alternatives, especially for this sort of price point, selling at £1,200 at the time of filming, and if you use the link in the description for this configuration, not an affiliate by the way, just they set it up and give a discount for reviews, but either way you can check that out. But a comparative laptop is actually probably something like the Acer Nitro 5, which while has the 4-core 8300 CPU, it also has a 1050 Ti, so it means that you get pretty similar gaming performance for £750 rather than £1,200. With that said though, the Nitro 5 is a little bit on the sort of thicker and slightly heavier side. So if you want the ultimate in portability but still having some great performance to go with it, then this is a pretty nice shout. Would I put one of these on my desk? Well, probably not for me. I'd probably stick with a Nitro 5 just because I would rather game on the move than kind of work on the move. But at the same time, as I said, if your priorities are a bit more in the sort of video editing or even stuff like 3D modeling, anything that's a bit more CPU intensive but also want to game on the side, then this is definitely a nice option. And if you just prefer the thinner laptop for better portability, then this is also pretty good too. With that said though, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Is this the laptop of your dreams and you're desperate to get one, or would you prefer a thicker but faster laptop, or are you just a desktop person all the way and you know you don't care for laptops? Let me know down there. As I said, I will leave a link to this laptop in this specific configuration in the links in the description down below. It's not an affiliate link, but if you buy through that link, it does give you a little bit of a discount on this spec. So if you're happy with this configuration, you can check that out and save a little bit of money if you fancy. Now, of course, as I said, that isn't an affiliate link, but there are plenty of affiliate links in the description down below if you do want to support the channel. There's Amazon and Overclockers UK, which are free for you to use and massively help me out, and I'm very grateful for everyone who does use them. I'm also really grateful for the patrons here. Massive thank you to you guys. If you want to become one and get some cool rewards for doing so, then you can check out the link in the description down below too. You can also make sure you're subscribed for more videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, with live streams on Thursday nights. There's plenty of other videos over there. And otherwise, that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, leave that in the comments down below and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. And otherwise, thanks for watching and we'll see you all in the next video.